You know, that period you're talking about of the Depression,
Yeah.
I lost my mother and my father.
Oh, wow.
And he had no brothers and sisters.
Oh, so you were on your own all that time?
He was 9 when his mother died and 12 when his father died.
Wow.
So who was raising you when you were going through school?
I was bouncing around among relatives.
He lived in a different home every year.
I got to, this is a kind of an interesting story. I'd sometimes choke up telling it. But when my mother died, my father was a plasterer, a laboring man.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he
So my
had
brother does.
no way to take care of me, you know, just to take care of me. He was at work, and
Right.
I was going to school, St. Boniface Catholic school in Sioux City. And he said, I'm going to have to put you in the orphanage, which they had in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
You could go there temporarily.
Right, yeah.
So I went when I went to school. I told the sister, probably won't be coming back. My dad's got to put me in an orphanage because he has no way of taking care of me. And one of my classmates, a boy that I'm not particularly close to, or I knew him, you know. And he said, well, he put up his hand and he said, sister, he can come and live with me. You can imagine your kid comes,
Yeah.
So and I, like a little puppy dog, I followed him home. And we went to his house, and his father had been in an orphanage. And he said, as long as I can afford it, no kid's going to go to an orphanage.
Wow.
He didn't have a good experience with it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so I lived with them for a year and a half, 2 years
Wow.
in that time. And it was a great experience. I mean, these were nice people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a cottage at Lake Okoboji, which is a resort lake near there.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 2-year period, then my dad got married. And he married a gal whose family had a farm not far from her folks' farm
Oh, gee.
up in Union County, South Dakota.
Uh-huh.
And so I enjoyed the farm, so I thought, why can't I stay here?
Sure.
So I stayed with these relatives of my stepmother. My stepmother and my dad lived in Sioux City,
Uh-huh.
and I lived.
But they were only married a year and a half and his dad died.
Yeah, and he
Oh,
died.
wow.
But during that period, living with those people, I was going to her school,
Uh-huh.
a little one-room schoolhouse, and I was in the 6th and 7th grades there, and she was in 4th and 5th.
4th and 5th.
Uh-huh. That's something. Boy.
But that was I think the biggest class was like 5 people.
Oh, my God.
Well, there were 24 in the
In the
school.
whole school.
But it was a
In the whole building.
one-room
Yeah.
schoolhouse
Yeah,
with
yeah.
eight grades.
Oh, gee.
You know,
My
they
mom
can
went
say what
to a
they,
one-room schoolhouse.
they
Yeah.
can say what they want to about one-room schoolhouses. The one thing we got there was a good education.
Yeah. Yep. When did you go into service?
February of 43.
Okay, that's about when Stanley went in. Remember I told you Stanley was our first president. He was on the DACE.
Yeah, Weinberg.
Yeah, he went in about the same time as that.
Yeah, well, I turned 17 in December of 42, and I joined in February 43.
What made you go into submarine service? I know it wasn't the money.
What do I don't know.
They asked for volunteers.
They asked for volunteer. Well, first I went through boot camp first,
Right.
and then after they had a system of filtering the troops that came in, and those that had particular skills got to go to school,
Right.
and those that didn't got to go to war. But I went to signal school, and that's when they came around, some chief from the submarine business came around and gave us a little talk about submarines, and we're looking for volunteers, anybody want to volunteer. So sounded like an adventure to me, so I signed up. And they selected me.
Was that the first sub you were on, the Barb?
That's the only sub I was
The only
on
one?
in wartime.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you know the way submarines work, but when they come in from their patrols, the regular crew leaves the boat and goes for rest and recreation.
Right.
And then you have what it's called a relief crew. The relief crew cleans the boat up and mans it in the absence of the regular crew. So the regular crew is the source of most of the replacements. And so I was on several boats as a relief crew member.
Right.
I missed the tang, which was good.
Wow.
He almost was on the tank.
And then they selected me out of the relief crew to fill a spot they had on the boat, on the Barb, and that I got on the Barb in early '44, like June or something like that.
It's
And
such a
I was
great
on
name
till the
for a
end of
sub.
the war.
What?
Yeah.
The Barb is such a great name for a sub. Like,
Yeah.
whoever named that was a really good name.
It's the name of a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a saltwater fish.
I teach biology, so.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
I teach biology, so I was familiar. That's why I thought the name was so good.
Well, I don't know the nature of the fish. It might have barbs on it. I don't know.
I never knew it was the name. I never knew there was a fish named the Barb. You ended up to be an attorney for Westinghouse? Is that what somebody said?
Well, I retired
As an attorney?
He retired as Associate General Counsel of Westinghouse.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Then I practiced 3 years in Phoenix,
Uh-huh.
in a firm down there.
Did you go to school via the GI Bill after the
Oh,
war?
yeah, well, that's another story. At the end of the war, we went to New London,
Uh-huh.
and then we got 30 days leave. So we took leave, came back, then they discharge you. You know, why didn't they just discharge us
Yes.
early and let us go? But it was not an easy adjustment.
Yeah.
I was out 9 months, in which time I had about 12 jobs.
Wow.
I couldn't find anything
Yeah.
to settle in on. Some of those jobs were backbreakers, and I wasn't used to that kind of life.
Yeah.
But then I decided to re-enlist, and I re-enlisted for 2 years.
Oh.
And then I was on several boats. But when I got out, by the time then that 2 years had gone by, I had decided I wanted to go to school.
Good.
Because I had dropped out of high school
Ah,
in
okay.
10th grade, and so I decided I wanted to go to school, and I, at the University of South Dakota, which was right near where I lived,
Mm-hmm.
offered to let me go in on probation on the basis of GED tests.
Right.
And so I did, and I knocked the spots off of their scoring systems. And
He graduated at the top of his class.
No kidding.
it was a small school.
What difference does that make?
But I ended up at the top of my class in both undergrad and law school.
Good.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to law school?
University of South Dakota.
Okay.
Well, you took half of your
Well,
law
I
at
took-
George Washington in Washington
Yeah,
DC.
after my undergraduate work, I went to Washington, DC, and worked for the government, and went to school at night at the George Washington University. About half of it I got there, and then I transferred back to go to work at the University
Then
of
he
South
got a
Dakota.
job at the University of South Dakota on the faculty, and then he
Mhm.
finished his law school there.
With 2 kids
Oh,
and a wife, and
yeah.
2 jobs.
Not
Yeah,
easy,
that
man.
I wouldn't want to do that
And
again.
no more GI Bill. I'd run out of GI Bill.
Oh, boy.
If you're on the faculty, though, it makes it much easier to take classes at a place. I know at Pitt, it's that way. Yeah.
Well, I was in research position,
Oh,
tax
But
research.
boy, when you have 2
Okay.
kids and no money,
not easy.
and in law school, and
Yeah.
law school is so horrible anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
lots of hours.
Oh,
Sure, yeah.
they study constantly.
So it did say that the only man who was married that went out on the trip was the guy that knew the switch to see to build it. Like when did you meet your wife, and how did you meet and get together after the war?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we got together
After
after the war.
yeah.
Yeah. You didn't know each other before?
Yeah, we had in grade school, we had known each other, but hadn't seen each other for 7 years
Oh,
when we met after the war.
and did you go back to Iowa after the war?
Yeah, we went back to.
Yeah, he was born and raised in Sioux City, Iowa,
Oh,
and my home is 25 miles north of Sioux
from
City.
there? Okay. How long have you been married?
63 years.
Congratulations.
Good for you guys.
Thank you.
That's a haul, boy. I'm 52 years and I'm thinking, boy, that's a long
Well,
time.
it'll be 63 this summer.
Good for you,
August.
congratulations.
Oh,
Your adventure, which was
the train.
pretty interesting with the train.
Yeah.
The guys always kid me about that. You know, the Barb sunk a train. And I said, what are you talking about, sunk a train?
Yeah.
You know, and they actually told me the story, but then I found it on the internet and I made some copies of it. It was a pretty interesting adventure, if you want to call it that, I guess.
Well, it was unique,
It sure was.
and the 8 guys that went ashore, the historians say these were the only combat troops that landed on the mainland of Japan.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So that, and I'm the only one of the 8 left. So,
What made you volunteer for that trip you made over to Japan over there?
well, I was one of the crew.
Yeah.
I think the whole crew volunteered.
So how did you get?
There may be some didn't, some
Yeah.
married guys or something that didn't, or chiefs, older guys.
Right.
But all of the able-bodied young guys were ready to go.
Ready to go. Sure. At 19, you could lick the world.
Yeah, just looking to find another adventure.
Yeah.
You mean I can stretch my legs on land?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, when we did it, it was in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and it was dark, and here we are in this perfectly good submarine. It's flooded down,
Uh-huh.
and then we get into the 8 of us, 4 in each boat, get into these dink rubber boats,
Yeah.
which couldn't be steered at all. It was just, you were just moving them back and
Yeah,
forth.
sure.
And we way off our mark in landing where we intended to. But I was in the lead boat sitting with my back to the shore, and I had a flashlight with taped up so there was just a small spot
Right.
on the compass, so that the officer in charge of the party could see what the compass was saying. Well, it turns out we had so much metal in that boat, guns and ammunition and one thing and another. And Dave Teeters, the fellow I mentioned, he had devised they took one of these big food cans and cut it so that they could hold that up, and then they could follow us on
Yeah.
radar.
Nice.
They could follow us on radar, but we had this metal just messed up that compass.
Oh,
Our
sure.
compass was going like this. And the officer Walker, he lost sight of them. We were going for a mountain, and he lost sight of it. So
Oh, gee.
so we landed some distance away from where we had planned to, and I remember I was from Iowa. You know, I'd never seen an ocean until I got in the Navy.
Yeah.
And so when we were getting close to the shore, I could hear surf. So I had seen movies and showing this surf, you know, people piling up on the beach. And so I figured, boy, we're gonna really go bang into something there. But it didn't happen that way. We just slid up on a nice smooth
Sandy Beach.
sandy beach, yeah.
That's
But on the way out, the other side of that is that surf, even though it wasn't this horrible pounding surf that you see,
Going against the ocean
you,
stuff.
you try to get a boat,
Yeah.
even at a place like Virginia Beach,
Sure.
where it doesn't have any surf to speak of. But you try to get a boat through that,
Yeah.
out into where you can control it with paddles. Boy, that was a job. I was in water up to my chest.
I bet. Sure.
Yeah, I was, to this day, I wonder how in the world did I get back in that boat?
Yeah.
I mean, being that far out of it, that deep in the water.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I've tried to get into boats when I've been on sailing trips, and it ain't easy.
You're right. Yeah. Especially when you're in that deep and you've got something
Deer and everything
pushing
else.
at you.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was, but we got off.
Yeah.
On that trip was a guy named Billy Ray Hatfield. And Billy Ray could make a wonderful story for you. he was a Kentucky boy, and he lived in Ohio at the end when he died. But he said when we were coming back, paddling back, he was in the other boat. And he said, those guys in the boat said, if we have to go back and do this again, we're going to throw you over.
Because of the switch? Like in case the switch didn't work or something? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that made the detonator, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's the one that came up with the idea of the micro switch,
Yeah.
and he went along to do the electrical. I think he was an electrician. On
He
the
was
boat.
the only one that was married.
Yeah,
That's
And
what
he
it
had-
said in the story.
He had
yeah.
to go because he knew
He was
how
the only
to
one who
do
knew
it.
how to do the
He
switch.
knew how to do it.
And
Yeah.
how I got selected, I at the time, I had no idea.
It said in the story that half the people who went had to be Boy Scouts. And I was
He
curious
was
if you were
He
one of
was a
those
Boy-
half.
Yeah, he was a Boy Scout.
Yeah, I'd gotten to Life Scout level. But
And he wasn't married.
So that's
I was
probably-
reserve, and he wanted half reserve.
Yeah, that's that half reserve, yeah.
That was interesting how he did that. You know, we had half reserve, half regular Navy.
But I've done a little researching since. If you research that what is now known as Sakhalin Island, it's owned, the Russians own it. They
Really?
They own the top half above the 52nd parallel
Wow.
through a treaty. I don't remember back in the early 1900s, the Russians and the Japanese were at war.
Yeah.
The Russo-Chinese,
Right.
Russia,
Yeah.
Russian and Sino War.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to settle that war, Teddy Roosevelt mediated the Treaty of Portsmouth in, I think, 1910 or something like that. And he divided the island, which is like 125 miles long or something like that. At the 52nd parallel, the lower half he gave to Japan, upper half to Russia. But and now there's offshore oil at this place, and they're building
wow.
a big oil operation up there. But when I check into what Sakhalin Island is, it's got bears. And it's got wildlife.
Yeah.
And it's mountainous the whole way.
Wow.
And I said, boy, oh boy, what if we had gotten stranded?
Yeah.
Because that's the skipper said, I'll come back 3 nights. If I haven't picked you up, you're on your own, head
Yeah.
north. The Russian half is up there,
Oh, really?
130 miles.
Wow.
So, and
How big was the device that you had to transport out? You know, for like the device that went out with the trigger and the explosives, like you guys had to carry that quite a lot.
The explosive was 55 pounds of torpedo.
Some of the other things from the story, it said that, you know, after the decision was made to go ashore, and you had to start, you know, making the switch and training the guys to go ashore and making the tools, because it's not like you have digging
Right.
tools in
Right.
the submarine. How long did that process take? And what kind of things did you guys do as sailors to get ready to go for a shore mission?
My guess would be a couple of weeks.
So what kind of things did you do to prepare to go ashore? You know, like what kind of, like were there activities that you engaged in to get ready?
there
or just-
we didn't do any training like that, you know.
Right.
We didn't,
Didn't have to do extra push-ups or anything?
no, we didn't do it. And we didn't go through any gun
Okay.
routines or anything. It was pretty much just, you know, we'll go and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I say, my research is I look back and I say that if we had been stranded, we would have had
What would you have done?
we would have had a terrific trip, I can tell you,
Yeah.
to live off the land.
Yeah.
And apparently, this is not land
Not
that's
fun.
free of wild animals.
Yeah, yeah.
So while you were on shore, in the story it mentions a couple of people, like the one guy has to go and check out a water tower, which turns out to be a
Yeah.
sentry tower, and
Right.
you know, the guy was setting the fuse and stuff like that. What was your role in the away mission?
There was another guy, Lawrence Newland, and I were stationed at the boats. Newland was there for something. I was there for communication.
Okay,
And
relay.
so I wanted to let them know that we had arrived.
Right.
We had prearranged a bunch of signals,
Sure.
and then let them know that we're shelling off and coming back. And so my job, we both reconnoitered about 100 yards either side of the boats. And I ran across what looked like a guard tower, a lookout tower. But most of the time I had my binoculars on the boat,
Right.
trying to make sure the communications
Sure.
were there, because the skipper, one of the signals that we had was he would fire a flare if he got chased away.
Okay. So you guys would know that there was no boat there.
So we wanted to make sure that we didn't go out the ocean with those rubber boats and nobody out there and nobody to pick us up.
Yeah, that'd been a little shock. Gee.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, everything went off okay, and we didn't get stranded.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, boy, that would have been a trip.
Sure would have been.
Did you hear or get to see the explosion whenever the second train, because there was a train that came through while they were setting it up, and then you know, another one came
Well,
through?
that's really when Billy Ray Hatfield's comment occurred. We headed back to the boat, and you know, as I say, it was erratic to get these boats in a straight line. They didn't go in a straight line, so we really became disoriented from where we had put Ben on the shore
Right.
to where we out there, and we kept saying, "Oh darn, we missed it," and it didn't work.
Uh-huh.
And that's when they made the comment to Billy Ray, "We have to go back and do this again. We're going to throw you overboard."
Did you hear it then, or you know?
Oh yeah, it was a. We were, well, let's say, I think Lucky had brought the boat into about 600 yards. He was almost scraping the keel, and because it was a very shallow
Right.
bottom, so we were halfway. We were 300 yards away.
Wow.
We saw this thing go up.
Oh my Yeah.
It was, it lit things up.
I bet you it did. Did you ever find out what was on the train that they were hauling? Was it ammo or
Well,
food?
I guess the typical train was, well, there were rumors. One of them was that there were 150 soldiers on it.
Right,
That's the one I subscribed to.
yeah,
I'd rather do that than the other one said there were women and children.
Yeah.
right,
I don't
right.
subscribe to that one.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Or food and cows.
Pick your rumors, I'll pick them.
That's the best one, sure.
But they had, I think the Thunder Below discusses the typical train.
Right, right.
It's the locomotive and the coal car,
Yeah, and then
wood
the
car, whatever.
supply carriers and the,
And then they have freight cars, and then several passenger cars,
Right,
and
right.
caboose, you know.
Yeah,
It's the, so what, I suppose in terms of lives, it's the locomotive guys and whoever was in these passenger cars.
disrupting the supply lines, setting them back a week or so.
Oh, yeah, it was, because that was hauling freight down to
sure,
to Hokkaido, over the La Perouse Strait.
right.
There was a ferry that ferried the trains, train cars back and forth.
So how long did the whole thing take, like leaving the sub and getting back? Like were you gone hours or?
I think it was probably about an hour and a half, 2
Okay.
hours in that area.
Mhm.
Traveling and getting off the beach and paddling is slow business.
Oh, yeah.
But the skipper he had a megaphone. He was hollering, paddle, like hell, I'm leaving.
I could see the train coming. Get back out here.
Yeah, he didn't want to hang around. But and I guess from, I don't remember this, but the book says that everybody who was not on duty, anybody who could leave the station,
Come up and watch.
could come up and take a look.
Oh,
I guess they
sure.
all popped up
Yeah,
and a lot of them saw it.
that was great. That must have been a great,
Must have just like
great feeling.
lit up their whole horizon.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, it blew stuff
Oh, boy.
pretty big. Well, 55 pounds of Torpex, which is more potent than TNT.
Yeah, yeah.
See that, each boat has 2 scuttling charges.
In case you're going down and don't want anything to be left.
If you
Yeah.
don't want to leave anything behind,
Right.
and there's one in the forward torpedo room and one in the after torpedo room, obviously by the torpedoes,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
will help blow things in
Sure.
too. And you had a timer. We had to get rid of the timer and
Switch.
rewire it for
Right.
this micro switch.
Yeah.
Like I
Interesting.
said, that's the source of the explosive,
Yeah.
which is very powerful stuff.
I bet, 55 pounds. That's a lot of stuff.
So it said to pick you up, he was in water, you said it was almost scraping the keel, so it was only like 6 feet underneath the submarine.
I think that's about all he has, about a fathom.
Put that into fathom, you hear that, kids? I teach that in class, the kids have never heard of it before.
Yeah.
Just how shallow is that? Can you put that into perspective? Because I've never driven a submarine, I don't know.
Well, if you, when you say put it in perspective, I'm not sure I understand.
Like, how dangerous is that? Like, at what,
Oh,
how much
well.
further, how much closer could he have even gotten, or,
Well,
like,
as I
the margin
said,
of error must have been getting small.
the bottom of Patience Bay is very gradual.
Right.
And so it wouldn't have been long, we pulled up the sound heads and everything that was sticking out of the boat at the keel,
Right.
and so we could have gotten grounded.
Sure.
He didn't have a whole lot much more room to go.
What?
He didn't have a whole lot more room to go. He was really pushing it.
No, 6 feet. A fathom is 6 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
But if, well, I suppose if they came in, if they'd come in to 500 yards, they may be scraping
I would
bottom.
have been, yeah.
And I'm sure they don't want to do that.
No.
That's
Nobody there to put you out.
That would be, right, that
Yeah.
would be grounds for removing the captain.
Yeah,
To ground the,
Around the ship.
ground your
Sure.
vessel.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite memory of being in the service?
My favorite memory?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Maybe you can't share that.
Yeah, don't hold back now.
Don't get into trouble now.
No, that's the kind of question my young
Yeah.
middle grandson would ask.
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite memory?
Or your least favorite memory? Is there something that you really don't miss at all? Or, you know?
Well, I can tell you my least favorite was the first night I was in the service. You go to the boot camp, and they hit you with a whole bunch of shots,
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
and then they send you to your barracks and give you a job to pack all your clothes in your sea bag. I was so sick from those shots.
Sure.
I could not do that. I told myself, oh, I can't do this tonight. I gotta go to bed. No, I don't know. I went to bed and slept.
Oh, gee.
Oh, I was sick.
Yeah.
That's probably my least
That's
favorite.
something how they treated those.
Now, and a lot of those shots, you didn't even know what was in them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that stuff was kind of experimental or whatever.
No.
So you got more sick that night. Did you ever get seasick coming from Iowa, where you're never really on the ocean?
No, I never did get a real seasick. I think maybe a little bit, but it was never a major
Yeah.
issue with me. My second least desirable memory would be getting our school grinder, our campus, our company, or whatever it was, the service school people.
Uh-huh.
The camp was quarantined for spinal meningitis,
Oh, jeez.
Oh, boy.
and I got sick.
Whoa.
And I went and you go to sick bay and they give you an APC,
Yep, yep.
an all-purpose capsule.
That's what it was. Yep.
And then it turns out I was out for about 4 days. It turned out I had pneumonia,
Oh, gee.
and that was before sulfa.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Boy, oh boy, that was quite a lesson I learned there how they treat untreatable diseases in the Navy.
Yeah.
They bring these guys in, put them in bed, and every morning they come around to see if they're alive.
You went through a lot even before you went out on the sea.
Their beard grows and they get green and pale, and then if they're tough enough,
Yeah.
they survive.
Well, there's no treatment for pneumonia.
Well,
Yeah.
really, back then there wasn't. Yeah.
There was nothing.
Make you comfortable. That's about it.
I was out for 4 days.
Yeah. You were
You
lucky.
just go into a coma.
Yeah. High fever.
And I can remember when I was recovering, coming out of this stupor, there was some guy who had recovered in our pneumonia ward. He was in good shape. They made you a messenger for a week. They got you up and at the end of your convalescence, and then you had to run around the hospital with messages for a week.
It's like physical therapy.
Well, I think that's part of it.
Sure, yeah.
But they needed the communications as
Right,
well.
right.
But there's one guy playing this record, that old Black Magic. You remember that?
Positively.
We could probably sing it for you.
Oh, God, I got so sick of it. Because I wasn't feeling great and I was coming out of this.
Oh, boy.
That was one of my lesser memories. As far as positives, I don't know. I can't. I really can't come up offhand. Nothing pops out
Yeah.
as being the most favorable memory.
I'm sure there's times of monotony and times of, great adventure and excitement.
Oh,
It goes back and forth, I'm
There
sure.
are times when you're scared. But I don't know. I never really felt that we were going to get sunk.
Mm-hmm. That's because you were with Lucky Flucky.
Yeah.
That's what they called him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was a very strategic guy.
Yeah. Show us what you got
Well, I
there.
wanted to show you something that I had never been in a nuclear submarine.
Okay.
This was in 2006, well, 2003, I guess. I went up to New London to represent our skipper, who was unable to go,
Right.
along with a couple other guys, and we ran into two nuclear sub-skippers in the submarine veterans clubhouse. They have a clubhouse, the only ones that have one.
Right.
But we ran into Dave Kern was one. He was at the time the skipper of the Virginia, which was brand new. And then Pete Mitchell, who was the skipper of the Springfield, earlier boat. And we talking to him, you know, and I said, you know, I've never been in a nuclear boat. I'd like to tour one. And Kern says, well, I told him our daughter lives in Virginia Beach, and he was stationed at Norfolk, so he said, give me a call sometime you want to go. He was the squadron leader at the time. And so I called him one day, and this is in 2006, a couple of years later, and boy, oh boy, he sent his master chief over right now.
Oh.
The next morning he was picking us up and taking us down to the boat. The boat we were going to go through was a Hyman Rickover. It had just come in from deployment. But the Oklahoma City was parked closer to the shore of it.
Right.
And those guys on the Oklahoma City said, you don't want to go that goes to that one. Come on ours. And so we did. We went on the Oklahoma City, and we had quite an experience. I thought maybe you might.
Oh, I'd like to.
I'm sure Lou would be interested.
Oh, I
in this,
bet he would.
But this is my daughter put this little album together. This is just it's stuff that she snipped out of the pictures and things that were given to us.
So did you see a little bit of a difference between your old sub?
I didn't see much difference in terms of space.
Really?
Yeah, there are 130 in a crew here, and we had like 65,
Yeah,
70.
so double the crew.
But the spaces, I think they were just as tight in that boat as they were in ours, even though it's a lot bigger.
So it didn't get any more luxurious, is what you're saying,
Well,
huh?
the bunks are a little better
Right.
than ours. We just had those, wire spring bunks.
Yeah.
Four deep in the cruise
Oh,
after the after battery, the cruise quarters.
I can't even imagine that.
But the gal there is my daughter, and that's where we're going to go down and live with her.
Yeah.
It's amazing, because if you didn't tell me that my first look, I thought it was my wife.
That's what it was.
I swear, my wife has red hair, looks just like that. I said, how'd she get on that boat?